It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. There has been quite the battle brewing between a lot of major players in Los Angeles. In one corner, you've got members of the LA City Council, Unite Here Local 11, the union representing a lot of hotel workers and airport workers. And on the other side, you have the operators of those hotels. You have the operators of the restaurants inside the airport. And the battle is over this ordinance that was passed last month by the LA City Council to gradually increase the minimum wage for what they call tourism workers to $30 an hour by 2028. I guess 28 by 28 didn't seem fun. So it's 30 by 28. Starting in July, they get a raise. And then next July, another raise. And then next July, another raise. And then next July, $30 an hour. The hotels say this makes it hard for them to compete with hotels not in the city of Los Angeles who are right over the border. It increases their labor costs drastically, which means they're going to have to increase prices, which is going to already hurt a very, very, very defeated tourism industry in Los Angeles. Part of the reason the city was in such a massive budget deficit outside of overspending and liability was a declining revenue when it came to the hotel tax. So the hotels have come together and they have put an initiative on the ballot that if signed, if they get enough signatures and it goes on the ballot and it gets voted on, it would undo this ordinance that would give the hotel workers $30 an hour by 2028. And again, it's very confusing what is considered a tourism worker because you would probably think tourism worker, you mean like, I don't know, people that work at, I was a tourism worker. I worked at Six Flags Magic Mountain for many, many, many years. So did my brother. I come from a long line of Magic Mountain people. Isn't that a tourism job? How about the guy who drives the TMZ bus? Is that a tourism job? No, defined by Unite Here Local 11 and the LA City Council's Hugo Soto Martinez, tourism workers pretty much means people who work in hotels, even restaurants in hotels, and people who work at the eateries at the airport. They are to be making $30 an hour by 2028, unless, of course, this ballot measure goes through and gets voted on, which again won't be until 2026. So I guess they get 2 out of the 4 raises. I don't know if they're going to be able to undo some of the raises, but let's see what's going on here. Because if you'll notice, members of the city council who pushed this thing through, they're very angry and they are very upset that people might think about signing this petition. So here is a report on that ordinance and the battle brewing. Here's NBC4.
LA is facing some tourism trouble all ahead of...
Look at that. That's some alliteration right there. See, when you have 2 words with the same capital letter and you do it on purpose, that's broadcasting right there.
LA is facing some tourism trouble all ahead of the LA 28 Olympics, Super Bowl, and of course a World Cup.
A recent number. Yes, the argument for why the tourism workers need this wage is because we're going to have so many people coming here for the World Cup next year, for the Super Bowl the year after that, and for the 2028 Olympics. And there's going to be so many tourism dollars coming in that all of these hotel operators are going to get rich. And so we got to make sure the workers get their fair share. Although interesting, apparently a lot of the hotels in the city of Los Angeles, they pre-negotiate the room rates years in advance. So they're actually talking about having to undo some of those deals and go to the international community, the athletes that book out blocks of rooms and say, we're going to need a little more money.
Olympics, Super Bowl, and of course a World Cup.
Recent numbers from the state and LAX have shown a decline in visitors, and now there's a new wrinkle within the industry. Many employers are trying to overturn a recent minimum wage increase for hotel and airport workers.
NBC4's Alex Rozier live at City Hall with more on these new developments today. Alex.
Colleen and Michael, two very different sides to this story. There are the hotel and airport workers who say today that they need this minimum wage increase.
And look, I do understand their plight. I didn't make $30 an hour for about over half of my 19-year radio career. Actually, more than that. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I've been doing this for 19 years, and I started making about $30 an hour 7 years ago. Thanks, SAG-AFTRA.
To afford to live in Los Angeles, but then some employers are saying this increase will lead to thousands of lost jobs.
And a whole lot of people pissed off if they don't work in the tourism industry.
Today, hotel and airport workers gathered on the steps of Los Angeles City Hall, continuing to voice their support for a recently passed ordinance that will raise their minimum wage to $30 an hour in time for the 2028 Olympics.
Buenos días, mi nombre es María Torres.
Maria Torres is a dishwasher for a company that packages food for international flights out of LAX. Her interpreter shared why she needs a wage increase.
$30 an hour for washing dishes. Nice work if you can get it.
My rent just went up $300. I now have to pay $2,000 a month, and what I make is not nearly enough.
But even after the council passed the wage hike, a group of airline and hotel companies.
What are you making if you're pulling $30 an hour? Well, what is that weekly wage? Let's see. So you got $30 an hour. Let's say you're working 40 hours a week if you're lucky. That's $1,200 minus taxes. It's probably like $700 a week. You still can't afford rent here.
But even after the council passed the wage hike, a group of airline and hotel companies are attempting to gather 93,000 signatures within 30 days as they try to get a ballot measure that could overturn the council's approval for more money for these workers. LA Alliance for Tourism Jobs in Progress projects the wage increase will lead to 15,000 lost jobs and a $169 million hit in city tax revenue.
Oh, boy, we're going to have another budget deficit.
The Alliance sent us a statement that said in part, quote, this ordinance threatens revenue Los Angeles urgently needs, not to mention its standing as a world-class host for global events like the Olympics. Small businesses will be forced to shut down, workers will lose their jobs, and the economic fallout will stretch across the city.
And look, employers are going to do what they're going to do, whether you like it or not. If you say you're going to be making $30 an hour, well, you might only be getting 20 hours a week. I very much remember as a part-time employee at a different radio station back in 2010 when the Affordable Care Act was passed to make sure everyone gets their health care. And part of the Affordable Care Act was, well, if you're a full-time employee, your employer has to provide you health care. So you know what happened? And again, you could fault the government for this, for not making these restrictions tough enough, or you could fault the company, or you can just say, well, you created the loophole, so of course they're going to follow it. But the radio station I used to work at before I worked here, KFI, said, oh, you're not allowed to work more than 20 hours a week. So that was fun. $15 an hour, 20 hours a week. Gee, I wonder why I quit that job.
As of now, hotel and airport workers will see a $2.50 hourly wage increase annually. Starting July 1st, 2026, they'll make $25 per hour. In July 2027, they'll make $27.50 per hour, and their wage will go up to $30 per hour by the Olympics.
Now, a major argument against this and why a lot of people might want to sign that petition is it's really strange and arbitrary and unfair. The way that now we do this is we select very specific industries that are not specific skilled labor. I mean, if they are hard jobs, I'll give it to you there, but dishwashing is not something you need to go to school for. It's not something you need to train for. Honestly, anybody can do it. I did it at the age of 15. And I was great at it.
Maria says if she doesn't get more money.
But you have fast food workers making $20 an hour. You have the hotel workers making $30 an hour. Well, now the fast food workers are going to be like, well, wait, why are we only making $20 an hour? Restaurant workers, if you work at a TGI Fridays in Los Angeles, you make minimum wage plus tips. And TGI Fridays, the tips aren't great. But if you work at the TGI Fridays inside the airport, $30 an hour.
Maria says,
go to the Chili's to go. Don't go to the TGI Fridays.
Maria says if she doesn't get more money, she may have to move.
I'm not asking for more money to buy a yacht. I'm asking.
That's fair. And look, you can definitely make an argument of what exactly do we do in a society where it's so expensive to live here because you're going to need certain below the line jobs. You're going to need people that serve you coffee at the airport. You're going to need people that are washing dishes and cleaning rooms. And if they can't afford to be in this city and they have to commute all the way from Riverside, is that fair? I don't know what the answer is there. I'll tell you this, all the affordable housing we've been building hasn't done a damn thing.
I'm not asking for more money to buy a yacht. I'm asking to be able to make enough so I can keep a roof over my head and continue to live the American dream.
We did the math for some context here, and a job full-time that pays $30 an hour is about $62,000 annually. Now, the group that is working...
Which, by the way, for the city of Los Angeles, is still considered low income. I think up to $100K, you're considered low income.
Now, the group that is working to overturn this ordinance will need 93,000 signatures from registered voters in the next 30 days in order for it to make it on the ballot in the June 2026 election. Reporting live, I'm Alex Rozier, NBC4 News.
So that's what the hotels and the airports did. They're collecting signatures. They got a few days left to do that. How did Unite Here Local 11, the union behind Hugo Soto Martinez's ploy to give the hotel workers and the airport workers $30 an hour by 2028, how did they respond outside of posting a lot on social media? How dare you sign that petition? They realized, well, okay, maybe we should have everyone do their own petition. So the Hotel Workers Union, Unite Here Local 11, this according to Westside Current, has submitted paperwork to the Los Angeles City Clerk to place a voter initiative on a future ballot, could be the ballot next year. This initiative would raise the city's minimum wage for every worker, every category, anyone in the city of Los Angeles to $25 an hour immediately, and by July 1st, 2028, every worker in the city of Los Angeles, when the Olympics begin, will be making $30 an hour. This would apply to all workers and all industries. So for all the people that said, well, it's not fair that only the hotel workers are getting this $30 an hour wage, now everybody's getting it. How do you feel if you're a tradesman, a welder, a plumber, and you're like barely making $30 an hour now, and you have to really work for that? Like, do you get a 50% raise? Do you get a 25% raise? Does this just completely exacerbate inflation? And I don't necessarily know what the right balance here is. I think we can all agree it is very, 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 very expensive to live in the state of California, and it's very expensive to live in the city of Los Angeles, as well as some of the other cities. But we're specifically talking about the city of LA, which is going to be interesting. I wonder how many businesses are going to move just outside of city lines if the minimum wage in LA City is 30 and the minimum wage in LA County is 20 or whatever it is. I should know that, shouldn't I? So this might be on your ballot if they collect enough signatures. And typically when a union is backing a ballot measure, they have an easy way to collect all the signatures. So I would imagine this is going to be on the ballot. And that's why we're going to do a little informal poll. This is just being talked about right now, so I want to get your initial reaction to it. To recap, the LA City Council passed an ordinance that would push the minimum wage for tourism workers to $30 an hour by 2028. The union behind that is putting a new ballot measure out there. They're going to try to collect signatures, and they want you to vote next June on the following. Should the minimum wage for all workers in the city of Los Angeles be $30 an hour by 2028? If that was on the ballot, how would you vote? Would you vote to increase the minimum wage in the city of Los Angeles to $30 an hour by 2028 for all workers? Are you for it? Are you against it? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. I want your initial reaction because people may be voting on this next year. So we want to see where the city is, and we got to prepare for what it's going to be like. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. Would you vote to increase the city's minimum wage to $30 an hour by July 1st, 2028? 3 short years away. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Get on the line right now. Tell me how you feel about this. A possible ballot initiative in the city of Los Angeles to raise the minimum wage for all workers to $30 an hour. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. The group that brought you $30 an hour minimum wage for hotel workers and airport workers in 2028 has a new proposition. They're collecting signatures right now for a ballot initiative that you could be voting on next June. That ballot initiative would increase the minimum wage to $30 an hour for all workers in the city of Los Angeles, all industries, by July 1st, 2028. If that shows up on your ballot, how are you voting on it? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's start with Cardi in Los Angeles. Cardi, hello. Cardi. Cardi going once. Cardi going twice. Please call us back, Cardi. We'd love to have you. Let's go to Marlene in Los Angeles. Marlene, hello.
Hi, Randy. How are you?
Doing great.
Yes, I don't agree with any of those proposed hourly wage increases. And the bottom line for me is that it would be nice if everybody made a lot of money, but the businesses can't afford it. So they're either going to have to cut hours, cut staff, or they'll close. And I don't see a net benefit to anybody for that.
I think you make a really strong argument. I mean, you think of how many people right now are making $30 an hour, and that is now the floor. So what happens to their wage? Everyone's going to have to get a giant increase, and then that contributes right there to inflation.
Yeah, but, as we know, all the times that wages have been increased, that's never happened. It never goes backward. It never levels out. So that would be pretty sad if your contractors and your other professionals end up making less than the hotel and restaurant workers and everybody else. That's not going to fly, and that's why most of us are moving out of this state.
Well, we do see quite a lot of that. Marlene, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. Cardi's back. Cardi in Lancaster. Cardi, hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Hey, so how do you pay guys that sweep and wash dishes to a guy that's welding or doing construction and has maybe 10 years experience $30? I don't think it's fair at all. Coming from a guy like me that's been welding for almost 40 years and really skilled. How do we do that?
And for a job like that, you're not just paying for your skill, you're paying for the fact that can be a dangerous job. And it's very different from cleaning rooms.
Fabricator.
Wow. Well, I totally understand where you're coming from because that it almost devalues the kind of job that you've been doing your whole life.
3 years, got certified, did my apprenticeship, and I'm making a good wage now. But then you get these people that want to make $30 an hour. I get it. But is it our fault that Los Angeles is so expensive that you can't live here?
No, I totally understand. And unfortunately, what could happen is this just makes everything else more expensive. If the construction workers aren't making $30 an hour, and then you get $30 an hour for the people washing dishes at LAX, and again, nothing against that job. It's a job that's definitely needed, although you're going to see a lot more of those jobs automated for sure. but you're going to see you've just construction workers. They're going to be demanding a raise. They're going to, if the hotel workers are making 30, they want to make 45. And that's going to be a massive increase in the cost of housing, which is already going to make everything more expensive. And then the hotel workers in Unite Here Local 11 are going to say, well, now we need $40 an hour minimum wage. We are slowly on our way to Barbara Lee Speaks for Me's proposed $50 an hour minimum wage. She pushed that one when she was running for Senate. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. The group that brought hotel workers and airport workers a $30 minimum wage in Los Angeles by 2028 now want to put a measure on the ballot, $30 an hour for everybody starting in 2028. If that shows up on your ballot, how are you voting? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you're on hold, stay on hold. We're coming right back to your calls. Next, it's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. Today from 5 to 6, talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. We're taking your phone calls right now at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. First it was Fight for 15, then it was Fight for 20, and now it's a proposed $30 an hour minimum wage for all workers in the city of Los Angeles by 2028. Unite Here Local 11, the group that brought you the $30 an hour minimum wage for hotel workers and airport workers, now wants to put a measure on next year's ballot in the city of Los Angeles. If you vote yes, the minimum wage goes up to $30 an hour for every worker in the city of Los Angeles starting in 2028. How would you vote on that? Are we ready for a $30 an hour minimum wage in the city of Los Angeles? 800-222-KABC. Let's start with Monica in Irvine. Monica, hello.
Hi, Randy. Thank you for taking my call. Are you able to hear me?
Hear you great.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah, although I live in Orange County, if I could vote, it would be a hard no. I was reading the book that was recommended in the other show and talked about how Kamala Harris really doesn't understand economics. I thought it was a matter of these folks not caring about the impacts, but I'm convinced that they really don't understand that there's a trickle-down effect. I mean, if we enact a $30 minimum to every single worker, a plate of food could possibly cost probably towards $100 just to cover the overhead. And I just calculated before taxes, a $30 an hour job is $60,000. It would be. It's $62,400 of annual income. Why something near $100,000 due to unskilled labor? Why would unskilled labor earn that much? I earned my starting job within my career, which was skilled labor requiring a college degree, started at half of that salary. So in the $33,000 a year, and this is skilled labor. I mean, I'm hoping and wondering who's going to intervene here. How can a city set a minimum wage? There's a lot that goes into determining salaries and hourly wages, market rate, demand, labor shortage, skilled versus unskilled, zip code. For the city can't just arbitrarily, if they want to pay their own employees $30 an hour, and as if they could afford it, they go right ahead. But how can they have the legal authority to even enforce something like that doesn't have any sort of economic backing or in line with industry standards as to how salaries are set? I'm hoping the bill of salees and the like intervene on this because this could be a catastrophe for a city.
It could be, but this is the double-edged sword of democracy in the state of California. We have the initiative. We have for any idea that the citizens have, or the unions have, or the special interests have, if they can collect enough signatures, they can get it on the ballot, and the question goes to the voters. So this could definitely pass, and we'd have nobody to blame but ourselves for it.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, folks can intervene, or people might understand that paying this much, if every single worker were to pay this much, it would just decimate our buying power. The city of Los Angeles and the councils are all about equity and helping underrepresented communities. Well, those underrepresented communities, good luck buying a Big Mac when salaries of everyone go into effect.
And just look specifically. Look at the ordinance that happened before this with the airport workers and the hotel workers. You think about how expensive food already is at LAX, how expensive it is to get a sandwich, to get a burger, let alone get a cocktail. Oh my goodness. And what happens is if that's just going to have to drastically go up and up and up because your labor costs go up, what ends up happening is people are going to pack a lunch when they go to the airport. They're not going to be spending money there. And then that means there's going to be less jobs to serve that food because people just aren't going to pay $30 for a sandwich at the airport.
Oh, absolutely. And I haven't even flown out of LAX since 2017. And even before I fly out of John Wayne Airport, I won't even go near that airport, especially with those prices.
We call it the airport of last resort. Thanks so much for the call, Monica. Appreciate it. You live in Orange County? You love your John Wayne Airport. You live in Long Beach? You love your Long Beach Airport. You live in the Valley? You love Burbank Airport. LAX? Oh, boy. Let's go to Adam in Huntington Beach. Adam, hello.
Hey, what's the point in becoming a nurse then? Or a certified nurse's aide, a licensed vocational nurse, or a registered nurse? If you're going to be in school for a semester taking anatomy or a prerequisite, and then anatomy or physiology, then maybe summer school, you lose $60,000 a year in salary by being in school. On top of that, however much you pay for the school. And if it's a private institution as an LVN school, it might be $30,000. If it's an RN school, it might be, if it's a private RN school, it might be $100,000 or $150,000. And so if you take anatomy one semester, physiology the next semester, let's say you pick up a pharmacology during the summer, then if you're smart, you do pick up 2 more pharmacology classes and a dosage calculation class. Then you pick up a pathophysiology class. That's 7 semesters, right? That's, 2-3 years? So you've already lost, let's say it's 3 years, you've lost $180,000 in salary by not working as a maid in a hotel. You lose $180,000 going to school. That doesn't even include the schooling if you're going to become an RN. Now, I'm not saying you don't make money when you get out of nursing school as an RN. You don't as an LVN and you don't as a CNA. But as an RN, sure, you're going to make good money. But there's a 6-year lag or 8-year lag before you break even. Because, let's say your first year you make $100,000. The problem is you've lost $500,000. So you might think you're making $100,000 a year, but you're only making about $40,000 because of you're in a higher taxable income bracket, and you've lost years working, all those years out of the workforce. So from day one, when you decide to become a nurse, your LVN or RN, your break-even point for being out of the workforce is 4 or 5 years to, I don't know, 15 years? So there's really no reason, if minimum wage is raised that high, to become a licensed a certified nurse's aide, a licensed vocational nurse, or a registered nurse. Now, as it stands now, why become a certified nurse's aide? I don't know if you've ever been to a continuing education unit class or certified nurse's aide. I highly doubt it. But if there's 40 women in the class, they're all over 40 or 50 years old. What's the point in earning $25 an hour or $20 an hour or $18 an hour, whatever it is you make as a certified nurse's aide, taking care of 8 patients when you could just be housekeeping. I mean, you're kind of housekeeping anyway. At least you don't have to toilet people or feed people or ambulate them.
Well, yeah, it's a much easier job compared to what nurses have to go through. Thanks so much for the call, Adam. I really appreciate your perspective on that as a nurse. But these are jobs, speaking of nursing, that's jobs that we're desperately in need of. And if there's now going to be a disincentive to go into higher education, go into working a trade because, well, you can squeak out a good enough living, working again, nothing against those jobs. I have worked those jobs. I have worked, before I was in radio, I worked in food service. I worked at Magic Mountain. I worked at TGI Fridays. I understand those jobs, but I wonder what it would have been like if, and mind you, 2005 is way different than 2025. But if I was working at Magic Mountain and instead of making $7.50 an hour as a supervisor, if I was making $30 an hour, would I have wanted to do anything else? That was a fun job. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. If you're on hold, stay on hold. More of your calls coming up next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to Greg in Santa Ana. Greg, hello.
Hello, Randy. Thank you for taking the call. I really appreciate what everybody's been saying, and I will follow with a resounding no in voting for that pay increase. But one thing that hasn't been mentioned is the fact that when you earn more per hour or earn more period, and you get your paycheck, your withholdings also increase, and sometimes substantially more than you anticipate. And I think there's going to be a rude awakening when that comes around. But I can understand why the city, state, and feds would really like to have everybody earning $30 an hour.
That's a fascinating point because that might push you into a point where you no longer qualify for Medi-Cal, you no longer qualify for food stamps, you no longer qualify for a whole bunch of other programs, and you'll have to pay taxes.
Yep. That's a harsh reality. I don't think many of these people are really thinking about.
Oh boy, how would they feel when half of their paycheck goes to taxes?
And then, like you said, all of a sudden, now they don't get the benefits that they were getting, such as food stamps and the like.
That's a really, really interesting point. Thanks so much for the call, Greg. Appreciate it. There's this really weird thing going on in California where it almost pays to be a certain level of poor because of how many benefits you get for being poor. Medi-Cal being one of the most obvious examples of, because if you have to pay for your own health insurance, that's such a massive hit as opposed to the people who do qualify for Medi-Cal. So there are people out there like, well, I'm better off barely working or not working because of the free health care. That's a weird, weird world that we're in. Hey, look at this, everyone. 790 KABC welcomes Britt Floyd and Alan Parsons at the Greek Theater on July 11th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing. If you're on hold, stay on hold. More of your calls coming up next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to Marlena in Canyon Country. Marlena, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great.
Listen, you've got great callers calling in today. They're absolutely right. This minimum wage business is socialism. When I was a kid, I got a job. I was making $1.25 an hour, and I was rich. And those days, you could buy 10 candy bars for $1. I loved it. You just get started in that industry, they're going to go all over. What can anybody do? Free enterprises, you are worth what you get paid. And if somebody doesn't want to pay you, well, then make yourself worth more. Go to school, learn your trade or something, or do something. But you don't have the right to somebody else's life or anybody else's effort.
It would be such a fascinating. It would be such a fascinating disruption to almost every industry in the city, and let alone what it would do to companies outside of the city or companies wanting to move outside of the city if all of a sudden unskilled labor is paying more than skilled labor in so many different categories.
Absolutely. It's ridiculous. And that is socialism. We still have a republic. It hasn't gone socialist yet. They call it democracy, but democracy is 51% vote on something. Well, it's not their money. The republic is where everybody gets to do what they want with their own money. And
that's a really good point. Thanks so much for the call, Marlena. Appreciate it. If you'd like to email us, you could do so at randykabc@gmail.com. Roger writes in, the unions are killing millions of income tax-paying jobs. Their support of AB5, U.S. DOL-IC rule, and super high wages will drive even more out of California. Well, that's what we're seeing, but we'll see if people would vote on this. I mean, that is a big number. Now, before we get out of here, I did want to mention this email I got from Bobby. Obviously, last week, we lost a legend. Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys passed away. And Bobby writes in, let me know that Huntington Beach, Surf City, is going to do a huge paddle out memorial for Brian Wilson this Saturday at 10 a.m. So if you want to pay tribute to Brian Wilson, you want to pay tribute to the Beach Boys, get out to Huntington Beach this Saturday at 10 a.m. and paddle out for Brian Wilson. Thank you all so much for listening, everyone. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.